Welcome to the Integrate This Ed Tech podcast. I'm David Berner, joined as always by co-host Jeremy Mikla. And today I'm super excited because we have a guest with us, Superintendent Scott Monson of Minneota Public Schools in Minnesota. And very excited to have Scott with us because I've got a chance to work closely with Scott and his team out at Minneota. And I think there's going to be a lot of great insights and things that we're going to go over today for many schools. So Scott, welcome to the podcast. We're happy to have you.
Super glad to be here. This is exciting, and I'll honestly try not to screw it up for you guys because we talk about making mistakes sometimes, and I can do that with the best of them. So I'll try not to.
Yeah, it's all right. Learning opportunities, right?
There you go.
Yeah. So Scott, can you kind of kick things off for us and tell us a little bit about your time before Minneota and just your experience as long as you've been in education and the different roles that you've had?
Yeah, probably the first thing, David, is when people kind of ask me about my career, and it's easy to say I've been in education for, I don't even know what it is now, 35 or 36 years. But one of the things that I'm really proud of is I've been a rural educator all my life, right? I mean, I started teaching and coaching in a rural school district in South Dakota back in 1989, and taught business education and the old typewriters. Fortunately, they were electric, so I didn't have the manual ones, but a lot of funny stories with some of my former students, and just about like my first day of class as a 8th grade keyboarding teacher. I didn't realize that the typewriters we had didn't have ribbons in them. So the kids started typing and nothing was showing up. Well, I guess I needed to order ribbons. So there was about 3 or 4 days of study hall right there because I wasn't prepared, right? But taught and coached, taught business education and coached for 10 years and then was lucky enough to have a principal actually in Frazee. Russ Robinson was his name, that kind of sponsored me, if you will, for Aspiring Principals Initiative, and which I'd never thought about being an administrator. And I don't know why Mr. Robinson felt like that was a good thing to sponsor me, but I'm glad that he did, because from there I was able to go back to school and get my master's degree and licensures and all of that. And was a high school principal down in Fulda, Minnesota for a year, and then also in Benson, in Minnesota, also for 4 years. And then the superintendent position in Morris came available when I was in Benson, and just down the road and comparable school district to what I was used to. A little bit competition between the two districts, but that was always good. And got to be a really small part of doing some good things, I think, for kids and for staff and for our community in Morris. We had really talented staff there, and who I think at the time were kind of just looking for some changes, wanted to be a part of doing things. We were doing things well, but wanted to be a part of doing things really well or great, and learned a lot, so much during the 10 years that I was there. And then had the opportunity to come down to Marshall and serve as their superintendent for 6 years. And again, very different district, but learned a lot. I think Marshall was more about leadership and sort of steering the ship, instead of sometimes in smaller districts, you also need to work on the boiler or work on the steering or work on the system, right? And that's not a bad thing. And it's not intended to be a negative thing towards either size district or whatever. But, that was also good for me. And then the pandemic came along. I don't like to talk about that anymore, and I have to, but or COVID, and just took a couple year break from education, stayed in the education industry, but wasn't a superintendent anymore. And then when the job became available here in Minneota, was super excited about it. I had officiated football, basketball, girls basketball, some baseball, been in Minneota many, many times, and just had a super high level of respect for their programs, their district. Started looking into test scores and some of the finances and what they had going on, those were all kind of where I would want them to be if I looked at another superintendent position. And the one thing that stuck out to me about Minneota every time I came into, whether it be down to the comp to officiate football or if it was here at the school, things were just done well. The school, our guys do a fabulous job of taking care of the building, and you can see sort of that pride that comes through. And I noticed that probably 15 or 20 years ago. So, to have the opportunity to be here now in Minneota and be a tiny, tiny part of, what we have going on is really cool. My daughter, Logan, who will be going into third grade, she comes to school with me every day and goes to school here. And it'll be interesting this next year because we have a three-year-old Jordan who will be coming to preschool a couple days a week. And yeah, that'll be an interesting car ride in the morning. I'll just say that. So, but it'll be a good thing. And I'd say blessed for the opportunity for our girls to go to school here and to get to be a part of this school and the people that make it such a great place.
Yeah, and I think you started to go down this road here a little bit, but I just want to, expand on it a little bit here about Minneota itself, because, really, I think maybe I think it's an African proverb or of some sort, but it takes the village to raise the child, sort of a thing. And I've heard it said many times. Maybe it's a little bit, maybe overused, but I really feel like the road you're going down really is this point that it does really take a community of people. And it sounds like Minneota has that kind of situation in place that you walked into. But, there's always a chance to kind of leave your mark, make your influence as part of that here. And so how has like this community of Minneota and the school in particular really to kind of help lay the foundation and the groundwork for some of the work that we're going to talk about here in a little bit?
Yeah, Minneota, there's a lot of things that I didn't know about Minneota when I started here, even though I felt like I knew some things and had some insight, and none of them are bad. I don't mean that at all, but things like, I think it was my first or second year as superintendent, and then you always realize there's some family names in every school district, right? Well, in Minneota, it's probably more so than anywhere else, meaning our folks want to come back here. They might graduate and go to college, wherever, but at the end of the day, a high percentage of our high school graduates or folks who grew up in this community end up coming back here, living here, raising their families, working here, doing whatever. And I didn't realize that. And people come back to things that are special to them. And I think that's, one of the things that, again, I probably recognize that as an official, but now that I've been here for, 4 years, it's easy to see that this is a special place. One of the words that kind of permeates throughout Minneota, if you look at different things that we've, created or plans or whatever, is the word excellence and striving for excellence. And that really is the bar, whether it be, in fine arts, in academics, in athletics, in our facilities. I mean, you name it, that's, we want to, and when I say we, I'm not just talking about me, but we really want to strive to be excellent. And I think that people take that responsibility, seriously. And I think that's what sort of led to, in my mind, and I realize we'll probably talk about this, but that desire for excellence is something that in my mind was sort of the nudge to get Scott Monson going when it comes to AI and some of the efforts that we've had with that. So, this is a proud community, like I said, that strives for excellence. It's a really hardworking community. And I can't speak to our adults other than the staff in our building, and our staff are incredible. That they work super hard. They care about kids. They're smart. I could go on, and our kids are so hardworking too. You can come into our building at 6 o'clock or 6:15 during the week, and we might have over, over 100 kids in the weight room and doing different things because they want to get better. Now that's athletics, but we also have kids who are involved in other things that are doing like FCCLA and striving to be on state leadership positions and FFA, and the list goes on and on. So just a community that really wants excellence, is willing to work to get it. I think rich in tradition because there are traditions here, certainly like every school district, but just really supportive and I'll just say it now. I think that was one of the things that sort of leaned me towards we need to do something with AI. Is I just remember sitting back one time and thinking, okay, I've kicked this can down the road as many times as I can. My toes are bruised. I just can't do it anymore. And then realizing, what does our community expect? Well, they're going to expect us to do something. And they're right. They have every right to do that when it comes to AI. So that was, again, because of the desire and moving forward towards excellence, just our school district and community recognizing that's what they're going to want from us, and I need to be a part of that.
So Scott, you had mentioned like you're kind of sitting there and thinking about this is something that we need to make sure that we're tackling. Was there anything? Can you remember any early conversations, whether internal or like if there was certain conversations you had when AI started to enter, as a topic? Can you think back to that? And
yeah, really, David, I'm going to say that it was probably more of a collective group of conversations, and not even necessarily conversations, more like one staff member would say, hey, have you done anything with fill in the blank related to AI? And me having to say, no, I haven't, because for a long time it was just, I wasn't, it's probably for me was one of those things that I didn't know enough about it to feel comfortable trying it. And then once I tried to use AI, I just recognized how powerful it was. So it was, this person would say, have you done anything with this? And another person, I'd overhear them talking at lunch or wherever about they did something to create a lesson plan or something, where they looked up some standards for the state of Minnesota and used AI or an AI tool to help them with that. And just so, a series of mentions, if you will, sort of likes, if you want to use a social media analysis, but there really wasn't any one particular thing or person. I do remember, and I don't remember specifically the date or who it was, but I remember somebody saying their students were using it, and this wasn't like 10th, 11th, or 12th grade students. This was, I'll say, a lower grade, and I don't remember what grade, and I just kind of in my mind thought, oof, if kids are using it, are they using it correctly? And obviously with the, what is it called, the Internet Protection Act or whatever it is, all the new, rightfully so, security and data privacy laws that we have to adhere to, just kind of getting concerned about if students are using it, we probably better be teaching them how to use it and do so responsibly and ethically. And then again, when I started sort of dabbling with it, realizing how much time it could save me, and knowing that we ask our staff to do so much, right? I mean, a teacher from 20 years ago, pick a topic or a grade level subject area, they still had to teach, which is the most important part of their job. But the number of other things that they now have to do in addition to teaching, I think, has just blown up over the last however many years. And if there's a way that, I thought to myself, if there's a way that we can help our staff in general, licensed or not, to be more efficient with their time, maybe even more effective with their time, I mean, that's a win-win for us and for them. But again, if we don't, I kind of felt like if we're not leading that charge, then it's going to happen haphazardly, if it's going to happen at all. And so again, David, to your question, there wasn't any one thing. It was sort of a combination of a lot of different factors. And I also remember a period of time where, every time I'd open an email from, say, district administrator, a magazine, or, and some of those listservs that I subscribe to, the number of AI related articles and informational pieces, it was kind of overwhelming. But and maybe I'm a slow learner, but I did learn that, okay, this is significant, and I better figure out what it means for our district. And at some point in time, I think the light just clicked on, and we started to move the needle a little bit.
Yeah, and you had mentioned there was like a number of different conversations or things that just continue to pop up and almost like keep like tapping you or something and say like, hey, this is something we need to talk about. Was there anything as far as like the AI guidance, so say the document itself, where you were like, we need to do this year. This is something that, because I know like in talking with you previously, you could have just pushed it further. I mean, you've got a ton of different stuff you're working on, right? You've got building budgets, curriculum decisions, personnel, all those different things that are going on that are constant. What was it that was like saying, hey, what made you say we need to do this AI guidance right now, this year?
I say this a little bit tongue in cheek, David, but I don't know if you save your emails or not, but have you ever looked at how many emails you sent me about AI and technology in general? I mean, dude, it was like my inbox. I had to ask for more memory from Devin. And I say that in a good way because, I think, well, number one, it's probably part of your job, right? But the service that you guys offer is amazing. And I know we can talk about that. But again, I think it was just it was a comfort level for me. It was all the puzzle pieces kind of fit together. It was okay. Now I know a little bit about AI. I've heard all of these staff members talking about it. Our kids are using it, and we had staff that wanted to be a part of and recognized that we needed some guidelines in place. We needed a plan or a policy or a procedure or whatever. So it was just like all the puzzle pieces came together, and we really did have and still do the right people in the right places. I mean, we have a school board who's super supportive. We have a community who a few years ago allowed us to do a technology levy. So, they understand that technology is an important part of our students' futures, and we want to be good stewards of those dollars, certainly, and maximize the impact that they can make. Devin Schultz, our technology director, is very open-minded and wants to do what's best for kids. Our principals have been right there. And then our licensed staff and our board has been super supportive of just, where do you guys want to go, and letting us go there. So I'd love to tell you that on this day at this time, this happened, and that was what flicked the light switch for me. But it was literally just things falling into place. And then, I think understanding the importance of AI in general led me to believe that we needed to have a process instead of meaning stretched out over time. And what that time period is for other districts could be different. As you know, David, for us, it was about a year, right? It was a school year, but that we needed to have a process to work on this, so that in between our meetings, if one or two or six of our task force members felt like we were going this way and we should have been going this way, they had time to recognize that, and time to think about, well, why are we going this way, and why should we be going this way? And it gave us an opportunity to kind of monitor along the way, I think, when we were going through the process. Again, I wish I had specific answer for you, but I don't, because it didn't happen for me that way. It was really just a kind of a perfect maelstrom, if you will, of different pieces that fell into place.
Sure. And Scott, I'm just going to say, if you think David floods your email inbox, don't ever give him your cell phone number. Let me tell you.
I don't know that I have, but I mean, I did a search for one of his emails the other day, and I think I had 137 of them still. So I've read 14 of them. So you're getting up there, David. I mean, you're almost to the 10% mark. But.
Good to hear.
Well, Scott, one of the things that you had talked about right before here, I tried right before I tried to detract from where you were going here, is you talked about having the people involved here, and I'm kind of imagining here you've got some momentum going, but you don't want it to turn into that moment, and I'm thinking of like Will Ferrell in the movie Old School when he's yelling everybody, we're going to run streaking through the quad, and he's out there and he's running naked by himself. How did you make sure it just wasn't Scott Monson, leading the charge, and then after a while you turn and look, there's no one there. How do you bring that momentum with you?
Yeah, again, I think it's a big part of it is just having the right people that are willing to sort of embrace the responsibility, embrace the change. And again, we just have super talented people who want to do good things for kids. But the first thing that we did is we opened up our task force to all of our licensed staff members. We felt like that was important, that we needed to be able to say everyone had a chance to be on this task force. But we also told them we don't know what the commitment's going to be, but we know there's going to be a commitment, right? And so that, I think that was the first thing. And then, we felt it was important. I say we because it's kind of our principals and I that are doing the majority of this. So, we felt it was important to have representation from both the elementary school and the high school, and it worked out well. We had 2 licensed staff members from each of the buildings. Obviously, we wanted our Devin, our technology director, on the task force, along with both of our principals. And then our board, and I don't remember what month it was. It might have been July, August, September a year ago, committed to establishing a task force that included 3 of our school board members. So Julie Mead, Emily Cookett, and Abby Thostenson were all a part of that committee as well. So, I think anytime, and I guess for me, I would much rather learn with people instead of tell people, if that makes sense. And, to your point, I've probably on multiple occasions, but certainly at different times in my career have not necessarily running naked through any commons areas or anything like that.
No rumors starting here.
No, I know. I'm gonna wash those right away. But been out in front of people, right? And the one thing that I guess I feel proud of about my career in education, especially where I'm at now, is I truly believe that we have to collaborate, because again, I could sit down. I could have probably sat down over the course of a week or 2 with some dedicated time and come up with an AI guidance plan. But then it would have been Scott Monson's plan. And I say that all the time, whether it be, a school safety plan, a crisis response plan, a AI guidance plan, or, whatever it is. This isn't about Scott Monson. This is about the students and staff and families and school district of Minneota. So, being able to just step back and let people do things is, for me, just become ultra important, because Scott's only going to be here for 3, 4, 5 more years, but hopefully this plan goes on for many years, and it needs to be reflective of what, is truly indicative or happening in our school district. The other thing I'd say is, I'm not a teacher, right? So I don't know. I don't experience what our teachers do. I don't experience if kids are using AI or not. I use it in my job and in my personal life. I use AI, but again, I'm not a teacher who's trying to figure out ways to use it ethically and responsibly and safely and things like that. So again, a recognition probably that this needs to come from the ground up, and I'll give props to our school board members too, because they certainly contributed to the conversation. But and David, you can correct me if you think I'm off base here, but I never felt like there was a time when any of our board members or really anyone on our task force was like, this is the way that it has to be. I felt like it was, here's an idea, let's talk about it, and let's work together to get this the way that we want it to be, instead of it has to be this way. And so again, props to our school board members because that's not easy for any of us that are in quote unquote leadership positions. It's not easy to let go of the reins, but it's also the right thing to do. And I think the outcome is much better when we're able to do that. So yeah, I'd forgot about that movie for a while, but thanks for bringing it up. So
one of the things that you mentioned there, Scott, too, is that you'd rather learn with people. And I think when you bring together a task force like what you're talking about here, is that you have to have that time dedicated for the people on the task force to be together, to be able to experience it together, to learn from one another. And you mentioned the fact that you had your licensed teaching staff members that were also a part of that. Which I know from conversations with David meant that you had to pull them out of the classroom at different times during the process in order to bring them together, which I know involves finding subs. And I know from my experiences as being a teacher in a rural district as well, those subs are hard to come by, and it's a difficult thing, but yet I think it points to the importance that you gave a lot of value to the contributions that teachers could have. Do you think you could have gotten to the point where you are without that experience, without having that room together, without bringing the teachers into the mix as well?
No, we couldn't have. And, then kind of how we planned it out is we'd pick a date 6 or 8 weeks in the future, and then, allow our office staff to make sure that we had substitutes for those folks to be involved. Because again, they're the ones at the ground level. They're the ones that really needed and will continue to need to give us some direction when it comes to what takes place in the classroom. Because our principals are both super smart. Devin's super smart and talented, but we're not in the classroom every day. We don't see what the teachers do. And even like our paras, that's a next step for us, is how can we, help our paras develop, and what does that look like? Because I'm not para either, so we're going to have to get some input from them. But without having our teachers in the room, without having dedicated time off-site, and I'll advocate for that, because if you're in the building, somebody's going to find you, and you're going to get interrupted, and you're going to get pulled away because so-and-so, threw up next to the bathroom, or, this kid didn't bring their pencil, and you guys know what I'm talking about. So as much as I don't like pulling our teachers out of the classroom, and I don't, because our teachers are amazing, and what they can do during a school day with however many kids they interact with is really powerful. But it was an investment that we needed to make. And there's other cases, curriculum review. We probably need to start looking at how, if possible, we can pull our teachers from the classroom and find subs for them as well. But it was crucial that our licensed staff were in the room when these conversations were taking place. And the other thing, and David can attest to this, is we'd have, I'll say, like homework, but sometimes it was during the meeting and sometimes it was between meetings. But our folks, I thought they did an amazing job just finding some of the things that they did, and some of the resources, and BBS, beg, borrow, and steal when you can, and give credit where credit's due, and make sure that we're citing it, and so on and so forth. But again, these folks were really crucial. I think everybody on the task force did a really nice job, but having our licensed staff included was to me, one of the most important parts of it, and having it off site so that we could just get away and as to the best extent possible, turn our phones on silent and get down and get to work and go from there.
There's probably a lot of folks that are listening that are curious about the process of what that actually looked like from like meeting to meeting or the in between and things like that. Because what I kind of calculated was that there were 6 in-person sessions that roughly were about 22 hours of investment of structured work and time for that team to really work together at the Marshall offices, like you mentioned. What was your perception of that as we organized that and it was going on? Because there wasn't really like a, hey, when this will be done. It's just that you continued to set aside the time, and as the process went along, adjusted. So what was your perception like about the time frame or the investment that it was taking?
Yeah, I think the time I didn't realize that it was 22 hours. Now that you say that, I guess I understand that. But, I thought that the time was really well spent. I know we had talked, I'll say internally, probably more than anything, but we had talked about, do we try to do this from 8 in the morning until 3:45? And I don't know, I just, you hit about 1 o'clock and people's interest just tends to wane, right? And that's not a negative thing. It's just, it's hard to focus on something for 8 hours. So for us, where we went, typically what we do, David, probably 8:30 or whatever, 9 o'clock until 1:30 with a lunch break in there. So that amount of time, I think, worked really well for us. I think the other thing is, and this is just Scott talking, it'd be interesting to talk to a couple of our task force members, which might be another episode for you guys. But I never felt rushed, but I also felt a sense of urgency to some extent. If and I know I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth there, right? But I just felt like the sort of the 5, 6, maybe 7 weeks, 8 weeks in between meetings, depending on when they were, was really good. And then the structure of the meetings, and again, kudos to the co-op and to you, David, and your colleagues for sort of having a process in place. But again, when I talk about letting go of the rope, I mean, there were times when I felt like, you never did this visually, obviously, but where you were just going, here you go, folks, go whatever direction you want or need to go. And then there were times when I felt like you were pulling that rope back in because we were wandering off in our own direction, or our own directions. But, just, I think a couple things that were really helpful as I look back on the process. One was seeing examples from other school districts was really helpful, because, when you start thinking about a vision for AI use, or whatever guidance in your district, that because it's still so new, and when you talk vision in general, people don't understand, including myself, at times, the difference between vision and mission, right? So it just being able to see what was out there, to start to get a sense of, well, what does that look like for Minneota, and what do we want it to look like, and let's put our own touches on things. Just having, when you think of the glass jar and you put the big rocks in first, right, and then you start to put some of the smaller rocks in, and then you get down to the pebbles and the sand. And I mean, in my mind, that was sort of the process that we utilized, kind of filling in the big rocks first, and then stopping at a certain point and coming back however many weeks later with that time in between to tweak and reflect on it. So I don't know if, I've never really thought about this, but I don't think I would have wanted to go any faster. I mean, it's always nice to get things done, but I don't think I'd have wanted to go any faster, because I really think that we all needed some time to just reflect on it and look back on it, and then David, one of the things, and that a lot of people probably don't know is, you and I and Devin would get on a call typically a couple weeks after every meeting or a couple weeks before our next meeting and just talk about, well, what might the next meeting look like? What do we perhaps want to accomplish, or what should we, work on, and what are some ideas? And then, either Devin or I were able to, or you, I think in one or two cases, we were able to communicate that to our staff that were on the task force. Here's what we did. Here's what we're going to do. And so those meetings to me, or for me, were really productive too, because AI is still something. If you ask me my skill level with it on a 1 to 5 scale, 5 being, David Berner, I'd probably give myself a 2. So I still feel like there's a lot to know and understand. And so it took me time just working with you and Devin and then our task force to just let all of this sink into my own mind as well. But so I don't think I'd wanted to do it any faster, nor would I want to do it any slower. But I suppose in theory it could be done. But for us, I feel like the 6 meetings and the 22 hours and how it was structured worked really well. But again, I'd be interested to see what our task force members think.
By the way, here really quick, just I'm going to say, I use the same scale when talking about hair. There's 1 and then there's 5 David Berner. I'd give myself about a 2 as well.
I tell you what, I have a brother-in-law, well, soon, not brother-in-law. He's going to be marrying my niece in December. And that guy's got the flow going on. I just look at him and just go, maybe I had that at some point in time, but not anymore. So
Scott, you had talked about a little bit about the process. And I think that one thing that's super important to get across is that the effectiveness of this whole thing really relied on communication, because there was important communication going on with that task force group and what was happening like during those meetings, and really good conversations and getting people's perceptions of things. But then there was also the communication, as you mentioned, that was going on in between those meetings too. And so I want to talk a little bit more about Devin and her role in this, because and not lose sight of that, because she was really important with this process as well, in talking about like what should happen in between and what things should we be looking at. So can you talk a little bit more about your conversations with her, whether they were, during those meetings where I happened to be a part of it, or if it was like even in passing, like, in the hallway, or you have this meeting upcoming and you wanted to talk with her. Was there anything that you can pinpoint there for us that was really important?
I probably talk with Devin every day. I mean, she's really great about getting out and about, and but inevitably it seems like after every one of our task force meetings, within less than a week, we'd either be meeting formally to talk about, sort of debrief, if you will, and look ahead, or it would happen just sort of organically. But Devin's, she gets the technology side of things, right? I probably get not that she doesn't understand this as well, but I probably get the application, the professional benefit side in terms of how AI can benefit staff members, maybe a little bit more than she does, but she gets the, what do we need technology wise? So her perspective was, I think, just really important. Plus she's the one that gets to deal with all of the student devices as well. And she knows what's possible and what isn't and what works well and so on and so forth. So, again, when we talk about just kind of importance of members of the task force, teacher, licensed staff involvement, crucial. Devin's involvement just as crucial, maybe just on a different perspective or a different plane, if you will. And I just appreciate that, again, and I could say this about all of our task force members, but I never question if Devin wants to do what's best for kids. I feel like she always is looking at it from looking at different decisions and different, directions or paths or whatever, in terms of if we can accomplish this or when we accomplish this, how's it going to impact our students, then our staff, and then our families, and so on and so forth. And so just to have another person to bounce that off of, because we didn't always talk about that kind of that micro level, if you will, when we were in task force meetings. But I just remember a conversation with Devin about, well, what are we going to do with our students, right? And there's some things in our guidance plan, but it's generic enough where now we really need to drill down to what that looks like. So her involvement was crucial, David. And just the other thing is people respect Devin, and that's really important as well. And when I say people, that I would say that goes for our board, our administration, and certainly our teachers as well. So to have her at the table and having conversations with her peers, her colleagues, all of our peers and colleagues was really important as well. So, and she'd be a good one to bring on this podcast as well, perhaps at some time.
As someone who's also been a coach, I coach football and track for over 20 years each. And, I could tell you how important the practice and the training time is in the process to get to that point. But it does come down to the point where people expect a final product in the end. They expect, to be able to see what you've worked on, to see this public kind of facing end result, whether that in coaching is a game or a meet, or in this particular case, all of the hard work that your task force put into. And then, like David added a little bit about communicating that message out. And so you do come out of this process with this final product. And the one that you created, the public facing AI guidance document, built around 5 areas: vision and values, centering people, advancing equity, ensuring safety and ethics, and continuous improvement. So when you look at that, what kind of stands out to you most? What are you most proud of?
I think the continuous improvement piece of it, probably, because our guidance plan isn't going to be. I don't think it'll be the same in 6 months that it is right now, and I think that we need to make sure that it's not, because things are evolving and changing, and we're going to find out that this doesn't really work for us, but this does, or, oh, we hadn't thought about this, so let's get that in our plan because it's a crucial part of, what we're doing. I mean, David knows we just had a call, was that last week, David, to talk about professional development, because that's going to be an important part of where we go with, and, PD for our students, PD for our staff, at some point in time, our families, and things like that. So I think just two-part answer. The ongoing improvements. How do we get better? How does this plan become better, more relevant, more practical, more effective, whatever you want to use? And the fact that we have a plan, I think, is because you're right. At some point in time, we needed something. If we'd have met for 6 times for 22 hours and not had some things coming out of it, some actions, or a process map or something like that coming out of it, people might have gone, well, why did you folks meet as often as you did? Mm-hmm. But to your point, I think one of the things that we need to do now is we need to pick out. I don't have a number in mind, but so I'll just say 5 to 7 metrics or outcomes or whatever that we can put on a dashboard for our AI progress. How are we doing when it comes to AI? Things like what % of our licensed staff have completed professional development? What have we done with our students? Have we developed a scope and sequence? I'm just making those things up. That doesn't mean they're right, wrong, or in between. But for us to get better at anything, whether it be our AI guidance or anything else, we have to continue to look at it with a critical but a growth-centered eye, and I hope and feel like that's what we're going to do with this.
Right, and it's a living document. It has to be able to adapt to the changes that that happen, especially in this era of AI. They, like you said, every 6 months you have to kind of be looking at it. But I guess I'm also kind of curious. I always enjoyed when coaching football that, the 2 weeks of practice before that first competition, and you can just feel like anticipation building. You feel pretty confident as a coach. Your kids are on the page, but there's parents out there, there's community out there that are just like, what's this team really going to do? And do you feel some of that, now that, one school year is done, but you're amping up here already for the next one? Is there building anticipation towards AI in Minneota?
I don't know if there's anticipation. There probably is, but I think it's curiosity probably. When we rolled this out to staff at the end of the school year, once we felt like our draft plan was in a pretty good place, and we rolled it out. We did that kind of in two parts. We did it one with everybody together, and I just gave a really high level overview and talked about the process and the background and the why. And then the second part of that was our pre-K through, I think it was sixth grade staff met to talk more specifically as it relates to what they do and how they might use it in their roles. And then our 7 through 12 staff had the same conversation. And I think there was my sense was that there was okay, well, let's see where you're going now, right? Everybody, you're going to put in a new offense. To your point, you're going to put in a new offense, and it's a wing T. I like it because we have the personnel to fit it, but what is it going to look like when the lights come on and they start keeping score? And I think it's the same for us. Okay, we've got some ideas. We can, we're going to be doing some things with how much AI can or should be used on assignments, and even what we want to focus on with like our elementary kids, sort of the sequence of curriculum when it comes to AI, if you will. So I think, like I said, I think people are just sort of sitting back and going, yeah, I like it. And let's see what it looks like when it's actually implemented. So is anticipation probably an accurate word? But I didn't see anybody, it was also the end of the school year, so nobody should be jumping up and down because Scott Monson is talking about our AI guidance plan, right? But, our folks will give us really good feedback. They'll be honest with us. They'll help us figure out what works, what doesn't work, what's missing, what shouldn't be there, what should be changed. And I don't even know if it'll take 6 months for us to have an improved plan and just continue to build on that.
Yeah, and one of the things that I often do is if I go around, and Jeremy does as well, we do a lot of sessions at conferences and stuff. And so over the last year or so, I've done a lot of AI guidance sessions at conferences. And one of the things I always do is I'll use Minneota as an example because you are a small rural district. And a lot of the time, what we often hear is that, well, we, doing AI guidance sounds great, but we don't have the capacity, we don't have the time. And I just like to use you as an example because there's so many steps that you took that allowed for that time and allowed for capacity or people at the table. So when you hear something like that, when you hear that sounds great, but we don't have the capacity, what would you say to that?
Well, I suppose I probably better come back with an appropriate response. That's just not accurate. I mean, if it's important to you, you'll figure out a way to do it. And like I said, going back to, I think this is in my 35 plus years in education, AI is going to be one of the most impactful top two changes or whatever you want to call it, evolutions in education. So it's going to impact everybody. That impact is going to go into the future, obviously. So it's important enough where you need to create that sense of urgency, if you will. Everybody has the capacity. It's just, do you have the will? And I know I've said before that lack of action is action. And again, you can kick this can forever. And as a district, if that's what you're going to do, that's okay. But because that's your choice. But if we don't teach kids how to use it, they're going to find ways to use it in not productive, maybe not even legal ways. And it's going to create issues for us. Even something as small as, and I don't mean to diminish it because it's really not, it's really important, but, having a conversation with kids about, can you use AI on this assignment? And if so, to what level? Well, my first thought is, why wouldn't we want to use AI? Somebody, I don't know, I heard a quote and I'll miss it exactly, but, somebody had said something like, knowledge isn't knowing everything, it's knowing how to access everything or the answers. And that's true. And AI is a way to, in my opinion, to get an improved set of information or, data or facts most of the time. So why wouldn't we want to at least at times encourage kids to use it? And you look at the jobs in the future. I don't know if this is true because I'm not in private industry, but I think one of the most desired traits that folks that are hiring want is candidates who have AI experience, right? And can write prompts and, maybe aren't afraid of it, if that makes sense. And so again, our job is to graduate kids that are, among other things, graduate kids that are ready for the future. And, AI is the present and it's the future. So I just think it's so important that, again, any district can make that excuse that, we're too small or we don't have the resources. You do. You just have to find them. It's the right people. And again, with, David, with your help and SWWC, we couldn't, I don't think we could have done this alone, certainly not as well as how I think it went, and our finished product would have looked a lot differently. And just to have somebody to facilitate the process, Scott Monson would rather be a part of the process instead of stand in front of everybody and try to facilitate a process that I don't understand. I maybe know 40% of what there is to know about artificial intelligence. So it's possible. I don't buy into that. That's just me.
So, and I do want to point out too, like obviously there's a lot of great stuff here that has been mentioned and things that have gone well. But like with anything, there's always figuring things out, and sometimes things have to be adjusted or they don't go well. If you kind of reflect on the process and you think about, let's say you were doing this starting fresh tomorrow. Thankfully you're not, right? You're far along the line now, but if you were starting it over tomorrow, is there anything that you would do differently or approach differently just based on what you learned through the process?
Yeah, there is, David. I think probably two things, but one stands out to me is I really felt like whatever should have had some students involved in our task force. Again, that's hard because you're pulling them out of school, but they have insights and perspectives that are just way different, and at times better than what we do as adults. So I wish we would have had, at least for some of the meetings. Maybe they wouldn't have needed to be there for every meeting, but for some of the meetings, I would include students on the task force. We had some survey data that we used from our kids and from our staff, but I think that's one thing I look at. And then the second piece is just maybe Scott Monson more as a superintendent. I would really look at this from a communications perspective a little bit more, meaning we have some ideas about how we're going to communicate this to our families, to our staff, so on and so forth. But I'd probably spend more time working on the communication part, and maybe that would just be like a subcommittee of the task force. Because as we all know, if something isn't communicated well and timely and in an effective manner, upbeat, positive, professional, then it's likely to not be as successful. So the biggest one would be getting kids involved. I'd also think about maybe getting some parents involved. It's really hard to get parent involvement, it seems like, but maybe this would have been a topic or an area that they would have been more interested in committing to, and then just me stepping back and looking at it from the communication perspective. We have that piece in there. We use some student opinions and perspectives through some survey data to guide our process. But yeah, I think I would like to have had students at the table as well.
Well, let's bring it kind of to a conclusion here with that a little bit, with just one final question before we get into the lightning round stuff, and it's along the lines of those students here we're just discussing here. What do you hope students' relationship with AI looks like as they continue through their school careers in Minneota or beyond?
Yeah, tough question. I think with anything technology related, at least in my career, I've always hoped that students, number one, wouldn't be afraid of it. And whether that be a new program or in this case, something really powerful like AI. So just having a comfort level with it. I think, secondly, it's really important that students, this could be a long answer because the more I talk, the more I come up with. But secondly, I think it's really important that students, just like anything online or on our cell phones, don't put stuff in there that puts you at jeopardy, right? The whole security and data privacy, we have to help our students. I mean, we have 3rd and 4th graders using AI, right? And I hope that somebody's telling them, don't put your name, don't put your address, don't put some of that stuff online. But we need to make sure that we're emphasizing to our students how they can protect themselves. I think that's a really important thing. I think third is recognizing that this can be a really powerful tool for you, and it's an opportunity, right? It's you could probably, if it was something you wanted, you can give yourself an advantage in the job market in the future because of your expertise or your skill level in AI and your ability to, effective prompt writing and how you apply it and so on and so forth. But again, you have to do that responsibly. And, so I think those are probably the 3 things that I'd really, just the comfort level, the privacy and security, and then just recognizing that this is a really good opportunity. But in the same sense, you can't use it to, quote word for word something that AI creates for you. You have to cite it and, do so responsibly. Those would be my 3 hopes for our students in the future.
Scott, thanks for all the insights and the different things that we were able to talk about during this. One thing that we like to do with all of our guests is to get to know them a little bit more on a personal level instead of everything's all business the whole time. So we want to go through these lightning round questions with you, and this or that questions. The lightning round, you can expound as much as you would like to, okay, or you can be a 1-word response or whatever you want. But Jeremy's going to kick things off with probably the best question, honestly.
All right, Scott, what's your favorite college football team?
Ooh, North Dakota State University.
Okay, I'm going to say, as a St. Cloud State grad and playing for them for several years throughout college, one of my most favorite games that I played in is we had North Dakota State down to Selke Field back in the day, and it was probably about 95 or 96, and we beat North Dakota State 34-0. It was the first time that they had been shut out since like 1980.
Wow, who was the quarterback then for you guys?
Yeah, it was Todd Bauman at the time.
Oh yeah. The old NCC roots.
The old NCC.
And it's changed. The landscape is a lot different now. But my mom worked at North Dakota State for 43 years, something like that. So they didn't have my major, unfortunately, and when I was going to school. But yeah, I'm a diehard Bison fan. Sorry.
All right, Scott. One word on this one. One word that describes what it feels like to lead a small district in 2026.
I'm going to go 2. I know you're looking for 1, but there's days when it's super, super exhilarating. It's, it's exciting when we get to work on things like the AI guidance plan, when we get to, dig into why this particular segment of our student population maybe did better on an MCA test than others, when we really kind of get to peel back the layers of the onion and try to figure out how to improve. Those are really exhilarating days. And I feel like in Minneota, again, because of that almost expectation for excellence, we get to do those things. But I think just in education in general, my second word as a superintendent would be dynamic. It's changed so much in the 20 plus years that I've been doing it. Mostly, I'd say for the better, but there's certainly some challenges too. So exhilarating and dynamic, 2 words. Sorry.
No, that's great. What does Scott like to do in his downtime?
Family. I have a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old, and as much time as I can spend around them, I like to do that. I would love to be able to fish every day. That's just not realistic, but if I could, I would. And then just faith, get the opportunity this year to serve on our church council. That's been really rewarding and enlightening, and just the ability or opportunity to serve others has been really good for me.
Awesome. Best meal you've had or place you've eaten?
Oof. Are we talking ever? Like my life?
You choose whatever you want.
Well, I can tell you it wasn't my dad's hamburger hot dish at Turtle Lake back when I was in high school, because that was not very good. But probably the best food I've eaten is Allison and I go to a small resort on Lake of the Woods every year. It's out on an island. It's called New Moon Lodge, and you would think in the middle of Ontario on Lake of the Woods wouldn't be great food. Well, their chef is like an award-winning chef from Ontario who just happens to be the daughter of the owners of the resort, and Chef Kristen. And she is amazing. Like, I don't really care for some of the vegetables, like sweet potato, for example. I'm just not a sweet potato guy. She can make a sweet potato soup that I would eat 10 bowls of if I could. It's amazing. But probably the best thing that she's made, and if or when Allison, my wife, sees this, she's going to laugh. But Chef Kristen had made a duck confit, I think is how you say it, the last time we were up there. I don't know if you guys have had duck before, but it's hard to make duck taste good. And I was like dreading this. I was like, I wonder if I can get a cheeseburger or something from her. And that duck confit was amazing. It was literally like I could have had 5 or 6 pieces of it. It was just so good. So New Moon Lodge on Lake of the Woods, Chef Kristen, there's a shout out to her, because she does amazing things with food that I can't even imagine doing.
Perfect. Well, how about like a guilty pleasure TV show, movie, or a playlist?
I'm kind of into, is it Tyler Sheridan, the writer producer that does the TV shows like Yellowstone and Landman. I don't necessarily care for him, but I like the shows that he produces or writes. They just I don't know if you guys have seen the series The Madison, which it's really good. It's one of the better ones that I've seen. So if his name is attached to it, there's a pretty good chance I'm going to try to figure out a way to watch it.
All right. What's something people would be surprised to know about you?
Probably that I really do enjoy cooking and barbecuing, and for others, primarily for our family and whatnot. I'm not real fond of the cleanup part of it, but if I can barbecue or make a new recipe and somebody else can clean up, I'm all over that. I really enjoy that. It's relaxing to me, and it's challenging. And ironically, there's times when I've used AI to I've got this and I've got these 6 ingredients. What can I make? And boom, here you go. And it's been pretty good at times. So
I've used AI for cooking so much. I actually ChatGPT and I co-wrote a cookbook together.
that's talent there.
Yep. So David and I are going to host a conference tomorrow, and you're going to be our keynote speaker. And we're going to, get the audience all pumped up here at the beginning as you come out on stage. What do you want that walk-up song to be?
My song my whole life has been "In the Air Tonight" by Phil Collins. I don't know why. I started listening to that back in high school and in college athletics. Remember the days of sitting in the old auditorium in Lake Park downstairs before the game, listening to Phil Collins on my cassette tape Walkman, and just over and over again. So that would be my walk-up song, probably.
We'll make sure to drop that drum beat at just the appropriate time.
Yep.
Scott, we've got just one more little quick session here. Now, these are one-word answers. You can only choose one of them. Okay. So we call it the this or that. So are you an early bird or a night owl?
Night owl.
Would you prefer a trip to the mountains or the beach?
Mountains.
If you're traveling, would you rather listen to a podcast or music?
Music.
Are you an early... Oh, I asked that one already. Never mind. Football or baseball?
Reffing or watching?
Let's approach it from being a fan.
Baseball.
Baseball. And are you the first to leave the party or the last one to stay?
Well, I'm 60 years old, so I am definitely the first to leave.
All right. Well, Scott, thanks again for being on the podcast, and we hope that listeners will have gained a lot of insights from our conversation. And is there anything that you want to mention as like last words on the podcast? Contacts or anything like that? Things that Minneota has coming up that you want to note?
I think, guys, just to reiterate to other people that are maybe watching this, first of all, if there's any questions that they have, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to talk about our process and some of the things that we encountered along the way that maybe we didn't touch on. Kudos to SWWC and the process, David, that you folks have, because it's really good. Like I said, I don't think we could have gotten where we wanted and ended at the point that we did without help from SWWC, and that process is really good. And I think it's just going to get better. I hope anyways. I mean, once you go through it a few times, it'll just, you guys are smart folks, and we'll continue to sort of, evaluate and change that as necessary. And I know I've said this before, but you got to get going on it. I just really believe that this is going to impact, it already is, our students and our staff and our families. And, while we complain sometimes in education about we have to be everything to everybody, that's what we have to do. That's what our society is asking us to do. And that's our responsibility. So with AI, again, if we're not helping our students and our staff and our families use it the right way, ethically, responsibly, and safely, somebody's going to, or they're going to make some mistakes. So I just think it's really important that to the districts that haven't done anything yet to start taking baby steps. You gotta take that first step. It's often the hardest, but when you're done, you'll feel good about it.
All right. Great. Well, thanks, Scott. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Scott.